Hello and welcome to our new series, Serious Insights from Salesforce Admins. Serious. It's going to be, you're going to learn that we love the puns. My name is Christy Campbell, and I am the senior admin / adminitect. We'll talk about that at Serious Insight. And I'm very excited to start hosting this show. And of course, who else would I want to start the show with than my partner in crime, Melinda Smith. Hello. Hi, Melinda.
Hello.
I didn't even prep since I know you so well. Why did I not even prep an intro for you? Melinda is a lovely and talented seasoned admin in the Salesforce space. We used to co-host a podcast, and I would love to hear more about kind of how you got into becoming an admin once upon a time.
I am your accidental admin story as well. I worked for a coffee and smoothie company and moved into like full commission sales. And it was freaking stressful because it wasn't like I was selling $2,000 things. It was like $60,000 things. So when I was like burnt out on that, I reached out to my version of a community then, which was like texting on Facebook. And someone suggested this company that was a candied snack distribution company. So I went there and it was like starting over again, as you do. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I was answering phones and doing customer service. And then I started doing some other things for other teams that got noticed. And right before I went on maternity leave, someone had said, "Hey, some of us are using the system called like Salesforce. Would you like to help me admin it?" And I was like, yes, because if anyone has heard the story a million times, I just didn't want to answer the phones anymore. At all. So I'm like, I just jumped at it. So when I got back from maternity leave, I still remember my first thought, like logging into Classic. And I was like, oh, this is kind of busy. It's like busy LinkedIn. And then because I am who I am, my boss at the time was, I think, younger than me or about my age. And I was like, I'm going to get more certs than you. And then, in that sense, like I went to my first user group meeting. It was hosted by Conga. And it was like, I didn't understand what's happening. Who's Conga? Who's paying for this? Is Salesforce here? What's happening? And I had asked someone, I was like, what do I do? How do I study? Because this was like workbooks, which I love Trailhead, but I love the workbooks. And then I just kept learning more out of spite. No, out of a challenge.
There you go.
Spite seems like a terrible way to say it.
The competitive attitude rises all boats. That's not even the phrase at all. I need to practice, clearly.
Adminitude, let's call it. All the puns.
Well, I think it's interesting because I also started in 2007 as a support rep, and then kind of was like, this page layout is stupid. Like, this process is dumb. And they were like, now you're an admin, right? So yeah. I think that's what, for our first topic, I kind of, for the new series, wanted to get into kind of that evolution, right? Because I think back in our day, right? Back in like pre-Trailhead, when you were having to, there were no characters to have on your shirt. There were no, it was a lot more, there was also a lot less workbook. Right. Yeah. There was a lot more in-person classes with handouts and, bringing home those laminated sheets from Dreamforce with like the tips and tricks on it and stuff. I feel like that accidental admin concept was stronger then. And I think now, not only do we have more things that Salesforce can do and more breadth, but also we have people who are choosing Salesforce and intentionally moving into these kind of roles. And
when Trailhead started, it had what, 2 trails? Admin developer? No. What? Yeah. I feel like there was 3 in the very beginning. I could see the 2 tiles in my head. So yeah, there was like a lot less of, titles, if you will, paths. And you're right. And then people were like, wait, I like that. I'm going to intentionally do that. And the accidental admin, I think, is still a thing, but I think that it's interesting how a lot more people seem to be an intentional admin.
Right. Or that like, oh, I heard about Salesforce from this person and like, what is it? And I'm deciding I want to change my life for X reason, right? Like change my job. I still want to work I want to work remote, like whatever reason you're looking for a life change, and they kind of end up with Salesforce intentionally, which is interesting. But I also feel like I'm curious to hear, so you started as an admin, right? Accidental, and then kind of how I think there's a perception of what that means, right? The lane that the admin lives in.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like over the years, it's really broadened and gotten a little fuzzier, right? Especially as we got into this idea of quote unquote declarative development, right? That you're an admin developer, right? And you're kind of doing developer type things. Kind of how that evolution happened for you and eventually took you to a consultancy.
Yeah, in the beginning it was, literally trying to get buy-in. Like half the company was like, why do we need that? The real IT department was like, no. Like, everyone calm down. This is good. So that was more like you said, like page layouts, half the team was using it. Then I moved to California and went to a user group meeting there. And I was like, that guy is super smart. That guy should be my mentor. And then of course, never thought anything of it, went through a hiring service. And then I interviewed with him. So I was like, what the what? So that's Guillermo, shout out Guillermo. And then in that role, that was like a more adopted, like that everything was on Salesforce. So that was more like learning project management. This team wants this, go find out what they need, what they're trying to solve for, ask a ton of questions and then do it. So that definitely evolved, even if we were still like, admins or senior admins, there was much more to it. It wasn't just page layouts and fields and setting it up. It was gather requirements and, then testing it and making sure you met all the needs of the team in addition to, whatever day-to-day work to keep the system running.
Right.
And then how did that, I'm trying to think how I ended up moving to consultancy. We wanted to move back to Colorado. So it was kind of, looking around that idea. And I felt like, well, heck, if I can manage 4 or 5 teams at a big company, like what's the difference between that and 4 or 5 clients? So it didn't seem that out of the ordinary. And I guess I would say that to any admin out there that's like, oh, I admin and maybe don't consider yourself a project manager. I promise you are, like 100%. Whatever you're doing, you're managing, even if it's like a handful of asks, it's a project management. So yeah, I just made the change. And honestly, it was at the time, the things that came across my world were more money. But this was at the time too, that like travel was built in. So like working from home, that wasn't even like a thing really. Right. So I committed to traveling a lot, going on site, gathering requirements. I know a lot of companies aren't doing that. I like that. Like I like traveling. So that was never a problem.
Well, and there's something about being in the room, writing on the walls, but even then, to your point, that's business analysis, right? That's requirement gathering and getting into business process design. And those are like MBA kind of skills, not necessarily admin kind of skills that I think, like I say, kind of have started to widen that admin purview. I have self-decided in my current role that I'm calling it Adminitect, right? Because I still identify as an admin, right? I feel like that's
Adminitect,
right? I think admin is still like my heart place to come from, my approach wise. But as I've my last role, we had a development partner, right? So it was really about, but it was external. So it was interesting because we could certainly collaborate with them, but then it was my role to present options that may or may not require code to then make decisions internally and then have them execute those projects if the code piece made sense. And so again, getting into like architect system type decisions, but feeling, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or it's just coming from that accidental admin, non-traditional background to think that like, I'm an architect, right? Like that feels kind of weird.
I feel like Salesforce Space has gotten to like hijack and steal a bunch of titles and then kind of like rearrange it. Because if an admin or administrator back in the day was, administrator, maybe like a support or a front desk person that like supported, the CEOs. And, we reappropriated that. Business analyst, like, yes, can you help me with this? I'm your business solution architect. I mean, the first time I had the solution architect title, I was overwhelmed because I'm like, oh, what am I going to architect? But I mean, you do, it's using your brain to figure it out. And like you said, the great thing about being an admin developer, adminitect is that you don't have to write the code. I mean, the architect club says that too. You just need to know when it's necessary and
Right.
what would make most sense here. Can you do it in a declarative way? If you're in a consultant role, I try and think about how the admin has to deal with it. Do I custom code everything and be like, figure it out, bye, contract's over?
How it's going to live on after you're gone.
I think that there's no real path. Like, no one says you should come in as an admin, you should come in as a BA. I feel fortunate that I was an admin first because I know what it's like to use it. I know what it's like to manage it, to be frustrated, to not have help. So I like that I had that path because I think it gave me a better view and I think to be a better consultant. But that doesn't mean you can't be an awesome consultant, ask the right questions and without knowing.
Right. I think to me, there was / is a perception that like admins grow to become developers. And I don't know that I feel like, I think there's certainly things to learn from the development approach. And, I definitely have great relationships with developers and have learned. And I think there's, again, overlap from that perspective as well. But for me, the idea of solutioning and the skill set of, to me, like the excitement when somebody's like, oh, I want to do this thing. It's like, how often are you going to do it? Where do you need the data to go? What is the, like all the things. And that to me is the core of the maybe more than an admin, right? But not necessarily, I don't know. It's just such a weird definition, right? Like you could have an admin who, to your point, is doing data entry, doing user creation, a doer, right? Maybe that to me is a little bit of a difference, like the thinker, imaginer versus the doer, which in my case,
or you're all of it,
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The code, I think if you want to go that path, you can. I think, I think it's for some not. And I tried a couple times and I think if I maybe really put my nose to the grindstone, but it was a bit of a stretch. So I wasn't loving it when I took the class and tried to learn. Though now we're doing more flow, and what hung me up is like the variable notion. Just like, so I just say to create a thing out of nowhere and it just knows. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
What?
Flow itself is an interesting example of this as well, because it's point and click, it's an quote unquote admin tool, but really it's like writing a trigger, right? Like,
it's not easy.
It's not an intro admin thing to do. So it's been interesting to hear people when they talk about the idea of sunsetting workflow roles and process builder, and people are, I think justifiably are like, but essentially your workflow roles are doing powerful things too. But maybe Salesforce, you just made it seem so easy that we didn't realize
it's getting so much easier. And
that's true.
Again, I think it's like a lot of things. I just have to keep using it, doing this for 8-9 years. And it's still one of those that only this year have I can't quite do one totally myself. I still need usually just like a little skosh of help, but I'm getting there. So I think that, any admin that's like, I don't know flow, I should know flow. I mean, we
don't shit on ourselves. You can, and there's ways to do it. But no, we don't shit on ourselves. I'm curious about, in the consulting role, I've been in a little bit of both. I did implementation more than consulting really for a product that got rebuilt on the Force.com platform. But I've mainly been at end customer orgs. And I think there's something I enjoy about, I built this new thing. I see them do it, use it. Great. Or of course, conversely, I built a thing and literally 2 months later we changed our process and now it's going away. But I mean, I still learned how to do it and it was good. But um, what kind of variety do you see in different orgs, even in terms of like the setup of admin teams that you're handing off things to deliver to?
The hardest transition from an admin to a consultant is realizing it's not your instance, which is super hard because I've had times where I'll create something and they have a great admin that will maybe change a page layout. I'm like,
I put it there for a reason.
I don't do your day-to-day business, but I feel this should be here. So that is harder, I would say, and that was harder in the beginning. Now I'm really grateful when there's a strong admin on the team. You know, we do a lot of mid-market type nonprofits as well as for-profit. And a lot of them either don't have an admin, accidental admin, or aren't strong. So you have to teach that. So handing off these things, lots of documentation, lots of training as much as possible, and helping them. Like a lot of times they get those accelerators so they can take some extra classes through Salesforce. I always have like a trail mix for them to start out on. So trying to like push them in that direction. But to answer your question about like what to hand off is you kind of hand off your baby and you hope that they take care of it. And, when you get an error message, 2 months later, because I was the last person that touched that, flow there, I'm like, I should contact them. No, or not, leave them alone. Definitely don't try to like go and fix it. They're not even under contract. So it's harder because you put pride into it and you want them to like it. So then hopefully they do. So you got to let go.
Have you, do you feel like the difference from, back again, pre-Trailhead, back when we got started, do you feel like you try to maintain depth and breadth in terms of learning about the Salesforce things? Or do you feel like, for example, I feel like in my last role, I had started to become a communities person, experience cloud person, right? And I intentionally didn't want to do that for my next role because I didn't want to become the communities cloud person, so do you feel like consulting gives you that opportunity to kind of get that
yeah, I would say it's kind of the opposite. Like I have access to this Arcus hive brain with ridiculously brilliant people I work with. So it's kind of nice if you can be the SME on something. I'm spending a lot of time in Pardot, spending a lot of time with form assembly these days. So I think that having a niche is kind of nice because you're going to get all kinds of projects anyways. I'm always going to be working on NPSP. I'm always going to be doing some kind of automation, some kind of implementation and data loading. So that'll like never go away, but it's also nice to know if I've honed a little skill that maybe I get more of those. And if there's someone on my team that I know is really brilliant with flow, like I think of someone right now, I know who I can ask right away. I mean, granted, we have a questions channel and things like that. But I would say that like in my consulting world, our team is trying to like maybe hone a little skill. So maybe they get more of those. And
so that all the,
then maybe if you want to flip it up and now I'm more marketing cloud or now I'm more accounting subledger, then, you get to, because there's so much and really we get to play with a ton. So the more skills we have, the more more of different kind of projects that we can bring in as well. Because we bring in a bunch of different ones, but like we don't do CPQ or anything like that. I don't know if that's something we'll be doing, but if we learn more skills, then we can do more fun projects. It's kind of fun because as an admin, there is some limitation to what you can play with. Like if your team doesn't want it, they don't want to pay for it, you can. Like going to community events and they would have like the, is it the showroom floor? No, what's it called?
The expo?
Yeah.
Sure. There's shiny new cars in there. I can see the similarities for sure.
As an admin, that was like, all right, cool. I could see things. But as a consultant, it's different. I'm like, ooh, tell me what you have. What are your discounts? What can you do? So that's fun because I get to touch and play with more things than maybe I would if I was an admin, because clearly, you need what you need and obviously I'm going to buy things you don't need.
Right. I mean, for me, that was sort of helpful at Dreamforce because it's Dreamforce, especially, right? The expo is so huge. Sometimes I was like, I need this tool and this tool. I can't take every free thing. I can't talk to everybody. I'll never make it through. How do you continue to get exposure to those different things? Is it mainly certifications? Is it Trailhead? I almost feel like I missed a generation with Trailhead. Like I'm a ranger, but I'm not a quadruple ranger. I haven't done all the things, because I feel like there was a lot of things I already knew or had done before Trailhead. Not that I don't learn new things, but I don't know. Sometimes
I am more of an on-demand Trailhead user.
Mm-hmm.
I go and learn the things I need to learn.
Okay.
There was a time that I would, sit on a Friday night and do a couple trails, and especially when the badges were lower and it did feel like you're kind of climbing up. Like I had like 155 and 100 at one point in time, like 2 years ago or more.
Right.
It's more like 4.
Thought that was going to be the pinnacle.
Yeah. So now that there's so much, for me, it definitely got to a point where it felt overwhelming. Like I can't keep up. And that's an added stress for why? Why? Why would you do that? And I'm like, stop that. So I didn't continue that path. I did for a while when there was like 2 and 3 trails and I was on it. So now it's more on demand. And I share with my clients. Like we try and we're not like over budget or anything, like we're not going to inflate all your numbers. So a lot of times if they're really new, you want to give them the tools again to admin the system later. So I provide a lot and then I'll use it on demand. And then like you said to answer your question about learning new things is certification. I mean, it's not like we get pressure to, we have to have so many. And I've worked for firms before where the number matters, maybe more so than the skill set. And they're not like that, but that's definitely where I'm like, I kind of feel like I want to learn something new. So I'm like, which cert should I go for? Because that's helping. I do learn on demand with certain clients, but not if it's like that itch where you're like, I want to learn something new. You can't just like go into the sales team and be like, what do you got? What do you got? No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. Give me that. That's what I want.
I think,
and I don't know how to do it. So it's going to take longer. You're good with that, right?
Sure. Cool. Yeah, great. Yeah, fine. Someone will pay for it. It's fine. No, I'm teasing. I think the idea is it's been interesting to see the new certifications that things that maybe I do but don't realize I do, or think about like the UI UX certification, right? That it's like we see that in like there's a difference between I made the object, I put the fields on the page, like I did the things here, right? Versus really trying to understand the experience and make sure that it's easy for people to get what you need, give you what you want from them. And doing those kind of pieces of like watching someone do something and you built this, like you said, you built this nice, pretty way, but they found some other hacky way or something, right? And I was like, users, right? No, I'm just teasing. So I think that's another interesting way that the admin role to me has kind of widened in terms of, really thinking about that end user experience and trying to optimize for that. Well, of course, we're also trying to optimize our automation and manage our technical debt and do all these other fun things. We're just these little
I think it's all extra learning. Like literally today, a person on our sales team had asked about kind of like a quote on how to help a client through like releases. And I was like, I've never done that. What am I helping them with? I was like, sure. And like you said, maybe I do it and don't realize it.
Right.
I don't know. Like it's the release is going to happen. And then
read
something breaks, let me know.
Pages.
Like, yeah. So, maybe that's a good example of maybe I do it and don't realize it.
Right. When you're watching release readiness and reading the blogs of the wonderful people that do read through all the release notes and try and highlight some things, but also,
I kind of rely on Jen Lee. I hope she keeps that up.
The other piece about that you kind of mentioned is like, but as an ad, I might not use all those things. Right. So a lot of those 500 pages might not apply to me. So,
user groups, I felt were always good for that. When I helped lead the Denver admin group, I loved giving synopsis on the releases. It's actually when I learned more about what was happening because I was delivering it.
Right.
But yeah, I think blogs and user groups, but like you said, each release is like more and more pages. I mean, I guess you could pull it up and control F all the things you need, but
do a little skim. Or stand on look at the abridged release notes from the Salesforce Discord. So at least break it down a little, find these people that are breaking it down a little bit too. And then cross your fingers. Test things in test release in a sandbox. I'm sure we all totally do that.
Yep.
Well,
100%.
Thank you so much, Melinda, for being my
It's
guinea
good
pig
to be
guest
here with you again
on our new series. The last piece I wanted to ask you, which I, maybe should have told you in advance, but we'll see how you do with just me asking.
Lob it.
In terms of literally what we were just talking about, right? Of kind of proactively keeping up to date with the things that are going on, and maybe taking a minute to learn something new. We love the puns. Can you tell me something that you've read or watched or listened to or found recently that you want to share with other listeners that you found especially helpful? I can go first if you need a minute to think.
Yes, go first. Let me think of one.
So I found a blog that's new to me, at least, salesforce-flowsome.com. And I want to say Melody is the author, just launched a YouTube channel as well. And the reason I really like it for learning flow, because as we talked about, it's the way of the future and we need to get on the flow train, is that it's use case based. And so it feels like I can find a use case that's similar enough to what I'm trying to do. And she does a great job of talking you through the concept with like a flow chart that then has details of each of the steps of the flow. So sometimes I feel like someone's like, oh yeah, I built this flow and it's like 800 nodes or something, it just like looks visually
here, add the variable, then it's the decision and assignment.
Just an assignment and a loop and a collection. It's, so it just breaks it down really well. So that's my, I literally can't remember how I found it recently, but
how to flow.
Right. Yeah. Somebody referred to it in some channel I'm in, or maybe on Twitter. So thank you, Melody. And that's my adminit read for this week.
Two of the things that I'm loving lately are actually like external tools to Salesforce. One is a really simple thing. Yes, I ask clients for their logo and their hexadecimal, whatever. And also, I am in a hurry at times. So there's this thing called imagecolorpicker.com. You can drop an official logo in and it gives you like the palette and the hexadecimals. Ooh, okay. So I don't have to wait. So, and you can copy. So I like that. And then like form assembly is just like constantly blowing my mind. A colleague and I yesterday were working through like these like double nested ifs, when to create a record, when to look one up, when to not. If you created one here, then go back and grab that ID and create it again. Like I know it's a powerful tool and I really like it. It's my go-to form tool if I have a choice with the client. And I just realized, yesterday, like how extra cool they are and like super, super functional. So I am like currently loving that tool right now.
Okay.
And the image because I don't want to wait.
I like it. So if you want to take a look at a form vendor, then that's your go-to. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your serious insights with us. And we will.
Serious insight. Please have me back. I miss you.
And we will talk to you all again soon. Thanks so much. Did I stop my recording?